Ladies and gentlemen, gather round and lend an ear, for today's tale rides straight out of the dust-blown pages of the Wild West, where courage was currency, danger was a daily companion, and fate had a habit of showing up uninvited. Our story begins with one lone cowboy, a man hardened by the sun and shaped by the endless frontier. On a quiet morning, while tracking nothing more than his own thoughts, he stumbled upon a sight few men would dare approach: a towering Apache warrior caught in the cruel jaws of a bear trap. Most would have ridden the other way, but not him, not this cowboy. What happened next would set off a chain of events no frontier map could ever predict. Because by sunset, word of his bravery had thundered across the Apache lands. And by the next dawn, the tribe's chief stood before him with a demand that could rewrite the very dirt beneath his boots: marry his daughter. So saddle up, friends. This is a tale of valor, honor, unexpected destiny, and the kind of choices only the Wild West could deliver. Let's ride into it together. The morning sun had only begun to lift over the horizon when the cowboy found himself riding through a stretch of wilderness few men dared cross alone. The land was rugged, filled with silent canyons and shadowed brush where danger had a habit of hiding. His horse moved slow and steady, hooves sinking into the soft dirt, as if even the animal sensed that something was lying ahead, waiting. The cowboy wasn't out searching for trouble. But trouble in the Wild West didn't need an invitation. It showed up when it pleased. And on that day, it showed up in a form he never expected. A faint, low groan drifted through the still air, almost swallowed by the wind. At first, he dismissed it as the call of some wounded animal. But then it came again, deeper, strained, and undeniably human. He tightened his reins and turned his ear toward the sound. Instinct warned him to stay cautious. Anyone injured out in Apache territory might be bait for an ambush. But the cowboy wasn't the sort to ride away from a cry for help, even when common sense told him he should. He moved closer, weaving through the scrub brush until he saw a sight that stopped him cold. There, half hidden between a cluster of rocks, was a massive Apache warrior, broad-shouldered, towering even while seated, and clearly a man of formidable strength. But that strength meant little against the cruel iron jaws clamped around his leg. A bear trap, old, rusted, and powerful enough to snap bone. The warrior's breaths came ragged, sweat beading across his brow as he fought the pain. His spear lay a few feet away, knocked aside, and though his eyes burned with defiance, he was helpless. The cowboy knew that approaching an Apache, especially one in distress, was a dangerous gamble. The tribes were proud, fierce, and slow to trust strangers. Helping him might brand the cowboy a friend in their eyes, or a threat. Yet turning his back on a man suffering, no matter who he was, felt like a stain he couldn't carry. He dismounted quietly, keeping his hands open and visible. The warrior's eyes snapped up, sharp and watchful. Even injured, he radiated authority. "I ain't here to harm you," the cowboy said in a calm, low voice. "But that trap'll take your leg if we don't act now." For a long moment, the warrior didn't respond. The air tightened like a drawn bowstring, both men weighing the situation. Then, with a slow nod, the Apache gave silent permission. The cowboy worked fast. He knew these traps well. They were made to hold bears, not men. And breaking one open took strength most people didn't have. He planted his boots firmly, gripped the heavy springs, and pushed with every ounce of force in his body. The metal groaned, resisting at first, but inch by inch, the jaws loosened. The warrior gritted his teeth, refusing to cry out even as the pressure shifted on his crushed leg. With a final surge, the cowboy forced the trap open enough for the warrior to pull free. The moment the trap snapped shut again, the cowboy stumbled back, breathing hard. The warrior inspected his wounded leg, but didn't collapse or falter. Instead, he looked at the cowboy with a new expression. Not gratitude exactly, but respect. A deep, grudging acknowledgement. Without a word, the cowboy tore a strip from his own shirt and wrapped the injured leg, tying it off tight. The warrior accepted the help silently, the tension between them easing just enough to let the morning settle around them again. In that quiet moment, something unspoken passed between them, something rare on the frontier. Two men from different worlds, divided by culture and history, had met not as enemies, but as human beings. And though the cowboy didn't yet know it, this single act of courage was about to echo far beyond that canyon, carrying him straight into a destiny he never asked for, and a demand no man could prepare for. Word traveled fast in the Wild West, faster than a horse, faster than the wind, faster even than a bullet when the story was worth telling. And saving a giant Apache warrior from the jaws of a bear trap was a story that crossed the plains like wildfire. By the time the cowboy finished tending to the injured warrior and helped him to a shaded area to rest, the silence around them felt less like solitude and more like anticipation. The cowboy didn't realize it then, but eyes had been watching him from the moment he stepped into that canyon. Apache scouts, silent as breath, invisible as ghosts, had seen everything. He mounted his horse again, intending to ride on, when he heard the undeniable snap of a twig behind him. It was small, but deliberate. The kind of sound a man made when he wanted another man to know he wasn't alone. The cowboy turned slowly, hands loose, staying cautious but not afraid. 3 Apache braves emerged from the brush, painted in earth tones that made them blend seamlessly with the land. They weren't charging at him, nor were they threatening. But their presence made one thing clear. His actions had been witnessed, judged, and now consequences were coming. One of the braves stepped forward, his face stern, but not hostile. He spoke in a mix of Apache words and rough English, enough for the cowboy to understand. They wanted him to follow. They wanted him to come to their camp. Not as a prisoner, the brave clarified, but as an honored guest. The cowboy wasn't entirely sure he believed that. Men didn't usually get invited by Apache warriors unless something big was at stake. But he also knew refusing wasn't wise. Besides, he had nothing to hide. He nodded. Lead the way. The ride back to the Apache camp was long and tense. The land shifted from open plains to rugged terrain dotted with towering pines and ancient boulders. The cowboy could feel their eyes on him the whole time. Not hostile ones, but curious ones. They were studying him, weighing his character, just as their ancestors had weighed the men who dared cross their lands. The cowboy kept his posture straight, his movements calm, showing neither fear nor arrogance. In the Wild West, respect earned more ground than bravado. As they crested a ridge, the valley opened below them, revealing the Apache encampment. Dozens of lodges stood arranged in a crescent, smoke rising from their fires. Women worked hides, children played near the stream. Warriors sharpened weapons or tended their horses. The camp was alive, thriving, full of history and pride. And now, because of what he had done, the cowboy was at its center. The moment he rode in, everything slowed. Heads turned. Conversations quieted. Even the dogs paused. The cowboy could feel the weight of every gaze. Some suspicious, some curious, and a few grudgingly respectful. They parted for him not out of fear, but because his arrival meant something significant. Saving one of their own, especially a giant warrior of such status, wasn't a small thing. It was an act that demanded recognition. The warrior he had saved was carried into camp behind him, supported by two braves. When the others saw him alive, though injured, a wave of approval rippled through the people. A few nodded at the cowboy. One elderly woman even touched her forehead, and then her heart. A gesture he assumed meant gratitude. The braves guided him toward the largest lodge in the camp, decorated with painted symbols that marked authority. He knew immediately this was the home of the chief. They motioned for him to dismount and enter. Inside, the air was thick with incense and the warmth of a central fire. The chief sat waiting, a man with sharp eyes that spoke of wisdom and a lifetime of leadership. The cowboy stood before him, not bowing, not puffing his chest, just meeting the chief as one man meets another. The chief looked at him for a long, silent moment. Then, with a voice steady as stone, he acknowledged what the cowboy had done. Saving the giant warrior had become more than a moment of compassion. It had echoed into the heart of the tribe. And now, the chief had summoned him to decide what came next. In that quiet lodge, the cowboy realized he was no longer just a passing traveler. He had stepped into a story far bigger than himself, one that would soon take a turn he could never have imagined. The chief studied the cowboy with a long, unwavering gaze, the kind that made a man feel as if every choice he'd ever made was being weighed on some invisible scale. The lodge was quiet, except for the soft crackle of the central fire, its glow casting shifting shadows along the painted hides that lined the walls. The cowboy remained still, hands relaxed, but ready if anything went wrong. Though his instincts told him this meeting wasn't meant to threaten him. It was meant to define something. What that something was, he couldn't yet guess. After a long silence, the chief finally spoke. His voice was deep and steady, carrying the authority of generations. He explained that the warrior the cowboy had saved was not just any man of the tribe. He was one of their strongest, a fierce protector and a member of the chief's own extended family. Had he died in that bear trap, the tribe would have suffered, not only from the loss of his strength, but from the blow to their spirit. The cowboy didn't brag or speak of his deed. He simply nodded. To him, helping the injured man had been the only right choice. But to the Apache tribe, his act held deeper meaning. The chief rose, slow but deliberate, and walked around the fire to stand directly before the cowboy. He circled him once, as if examining not the man's body, but the weight of his soul. Then he spoke again, this time in English, clear enough to leave no room for misunderstanding. What the cowboy had done was considered an act of great honor, one that demanded a response just as honorable. Saving a warrior's life, especially in a moment of such helpless vulnerability, was a deed that bound the two men together in the eyes of the tribe. But the chief wasn't after a mere handshake or a polite thank you. His people didn't believe in shallow gestures. Their customs valued balance, repayment, connection, the weaving of lives together when fate stitched the first thread. And in this case, the thread was thick. The chief motioned for a young woman to step forward from behind a woven curtain. She entered with gentle confidence, dressed in beautifully beaded garments that shimmered in the firelight. Her eyes were calm, observant, intelligent. Yet there was a strength beneath the surface, the kind only someone raised among warriors could possess. She did not look away shyly, nor did she seem surprised to be summoned. She already knew why she was there. The cowboy straightened, trying not to let confusion show on his face. He had helped a warrior, yes, but what did that have to do with this young woman? The chief answered that question before the cowboy could ask it. With a tone that held both solemnity and finality, he declared that the tribe had chosen to honor the cowboy with the highest gesture they could offer. He had saved one of their own. In return, they wished to bind him to their people in a way that could never be broken. And so, the chief announced, not as a suggestion, but as a tribal decree, that the cowboy would be given the chief's daughter as his bride. The cowboy felt the ground shift beneath him. Marriage? He had expected gratitude, maybe a gift or a feast. But this was a life-altering decision, one he hadn't even imagined. He opened his mouth as if to respond, but the chief lifted a hand, signaling for him to listen first. The chief explained that such an honor was not given lightly. The tribe believed that a man who risked his own safety for another's life possessed a spirit worthy of joining their bloodline. His daughter, he said, was strong, wise, and cherished among their people. To give her hand in marriage was to welcome the cowboy into the heart of the tribe. It was not a burden. They viewed it as a privilege, a sacred bond. The young woman stood steady, her gaze meeting the cowboy's with quiet strength. She did not seem unwilling or distressed. Instead, she looked at him as if trying to understand the measure of the man who had just been thrust into her destiny as well. The cowboy, still reeling, understood something important in that moment. This wasn't a demand made out of force or pressure. It was a cultural honor, a custom rooted in deep respect. And yet, it carried a weight heavier than any bear trap he'd ever seen. His simple act of compassion had just shifted his life onto a path he had never asked for. One that tied him to a tribe, a family, and a future he couldn't yet comprehend. But whether he was ready for it or not, the tribe had spoken. The next step would be his. The cowboy felt the words settle over him like dust after a stampede. Slow at first, then all at once, heavy and impossible to ignore. Marriage. Not a request, not a suggestion. A declaration shaped by tribal honor and ancient custom. The chief's voice echoed in his mind long after the fire crackled quiet again. And the young woman, poised, steady, undeniably strong, stood just a few paces away. She waited without fear or embarrassment, as if this moment had been expected, perhaps even prepared for. The cowboy, however, felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He had spent his life riding the frontier with nothing but his horse, his gear, and the long, open road. Commitment wasn't something he ran from, but it wasn't something he stumbled into either. Not without thought, not without choice. Yet here he was, in the center of an Apache lodge, being offered a woman's hand as payment for a deed he hadn't performed for reward. He had saved a man, yes, but not to gain a wife. He had done it because it was the decent thing to do. Now that simple act had turned into a crossroads that challenged everything he stood for. The chief's daughter, sensing the storm behind his steady eyes, stepped closer. She spoke softly, her voice firm but kind. She explained that she was not being forced into anything. In their culture, the act of giving her hand was a gesture of unity, not ownership. She said she saw honor in him, the kind her people valued. Her words were sincere, her composure unwavering. She wasn't a girl being traded. She was a woman of strength, with a will of her own. And still, the cowboy couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't settling right. He respected the Apache, respected their ways, even admired their loyalty to their customs. But he was a man who lived by his own choices, guided by a moral compass forged in hardship and long, lonely miles. Marriage, to him, was sacred, something entered freely, not out of obligation or gratitude. He didn't want to insult the tribe, nor did he want to dishonor the chief, who had shown him a level of respect he had rarely received from anyone, let alone from a whole nation of people who had every reason to mistrust outsiders. But accepting such a monumental life change without speaking his truth was something he simply couldn't do. So the cowboy breathed deep, steadied himself, and addressed the chief, not with defiance, but with humility. He explained that he valued the tribe's honor, that he respected their customs, and that he felt deeply moved by such an offer. But he also explained that marriage was not something he could accept as a repayment for saving a life. He hadn't earned a bride. He hadn't earned a place in their tribe. He had acted out of simple human decency, nothing more. The chief's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with contemplation. Around the lodge, braves tensed slightly, unsure how to interpret the cowboy's stance. But the chief raised a hand, calming them. He understood the cowboy's values, perhaps even expected them. A man who saved another's life without thought of reward was not the type to accept marriage lightly. Yet the chief also explained that refusing the gesture outright could create confusion, or worse, offense, among his people. To them, the cowboy's act had been more than a simple kindness. It had been a sign from the spirits, a merging of destinies. Turning away from that could be seen as rejecting their honor, their daughter, and the very bond between their people. The cowboy felt the pressure tighten around him. He stood between two worlds, one shaped by the open frontier, the other by ancient traditions. If he accepted, he risked stepping into a life he wasn't sure he was ready for. If he refused, he risked offending a whole tribe and possibly igniting tensions he never meant to cause. The chief's daughter stepped forward again, her eyes steady on his. She told him that she too valued choice, that she believed a marriage built on mutual respect meant more than one built on tradition alone. Her voice carried calm strength, and for the first time, the cowboy felt the weight of her words rather than the pressure of the tribe's expectations. She wasn't asking him to claim her. She was offering an understanding. Still, the cowboy knew whatever he said next would change everything. His values, their customs, her dignity, and the fragile connection he'd formed with the tribe, all balanced on the edge of his next breath. It wasn't just about accepting or refusing. It was about defining who he was and what he believed was worth fighting for in a land that demanded choices no man took lightly. The air inside the chief's lodge felt tighter than the hide walls that surrounded it, as if the weight of two worlds had pressed inward at once. The cowboy stood there, caught between duty and freedom, culture and conscience, honor and honesty. He had never expected his simple act of mercy to lead him into a storm this complex. And yet here he was, facing a choice that didn't just concern him. It touched the entire Apache tribe, the chief's daughter, and the fragile trust built that day. Tension curled in the air like smoke. The braves lining the lodge watched him with unreadable expressions. Some seemed to believe he should accept without question. After all, their customs were centuries old, and to them, such a union symbolized unity and mutual respect. Others looked more curious than judgmental, wondering how a cowboy, an outsider, would navigate a situation few men from his world could comprehend. The cowboy's heart beat steady, but his mind churned with the weight of it all. He valued the tribe's honor. He valued their courage and the deep respect woven into their traditions. He understood that their offer wasn't some impulsive act. It was a sacred gesture, one that signaled trust and acceptance. A man from the frontier knew how rare such trust was, and he was grateful, deeply, genuinely grateful. Yet gratitude alone couldn't steer a man's entire future. His freedom mattered. His right to choose mattered. Marriage, to him, was not something to take lightly. It wasn't a cultural formality or a gift to be accepted simply because it was offered. It was a bond of two souls, chosen, not assigned. And while he respected the chief's daughter, he barely knew her. He admired her strength, her calm composure, her sharp mind, and the quiet dignity she carried like a second skin. But admiration was not the same as readiness. The chief, watching him closely, seemed to sense the battle unfolding behind his eyes. His presence was imposing, but not oppressive. He had the aura of a man who had judged many situations in his life and who now waited for this cowboy to declare the truth in his heart. But waiting did not ease the pressure. The cowboy knew one wrong word could fracture the delicate bridge between them. The chief's daughter took a small step forward, the firelight brushing across her face. She spoke with a gentleness that surprised the cowboy, telling him she did not wish to be seen as a reward. She was proud of her people, proud of the customs that shaped her, but she did not want her life to be bound to a man who felt trapped. Her voice carried both strength and vulnerability, and for the first time, the cowboy truly understood the depth of what was being asked, not just of him, but of her as well. He realized then that this was not only about tradition or obligation. It was about two lives caught in a moment created by fate, culture, and circumstance. And he respected her too much to accept blindly. He respected himself too much to agree under pressure. But he also cared enough not to dismiss their customs with a careless refusal. The tension wasn't just between him and the tribe. It was inside him. He wondered what his future might look like if he accepted. Would he learn their ways? Would he become part of something greater than himself? Could he build a life with a woman he barely knew but already admired? Or would he always feel like a guest among them, a man who didn't truly belong? Then he asked himself, if he refused, what would he break? Would they see it as disrespect? Would the trust he earned crumble like dry earth beneath a wagon wheel? Would he insult the very people who had welcomed him into their sacred space? Everything hinged on balance. His freedom, their honor, her dignity, and the fragile connection created by one moment of bravery and compassion. The cowboy stood at the crossroads of cultures, values, and expectations, knowing he had to choose, not with fear or guilt, but with clarity. The Wild West had taught him many things. that a man's choices shape his legacy more than his actions. That courage isn't only facing danger, but facing truths. And that honor means nothing if it isn't guided by integrity. And in that lodge, surrounded by watchful eyes and ancient traditions, he prepared himself to speak, not to appease, not to defy, but to stay true to the man he had always been. The silence in the lodge grew so deep, it felt like another presence, an invisible force pressing on the cowboy's shoulders, urging him to choose his path. Every warrior, every elder, even the children outside seemed to hold their breath, sensing that whatever happened next would ripple far beyond the walls of the chief's dwelling. The cowboy knew that this wasn't just a moment for him. It was a moment for all of them. He looked at the chief, at the fire that threw shifting shadows across the elder's weathered face. Then he looked at the chief's daughter, the woman whose future now hung in the balance just as much as his own. She stood tall, her expression calm, but her eyes reflecting a quiet storm of uncertainty. Destiny, honor, and personal freedom had all collided in this one place, and now the outcome rested on one man's words. He took a slow breath, grounding himself. The Wild West had taught him that choices made under pressure revealed a man's character more than any boast or badge. He had seen men buckle under expectations, and he had seen others break their own code for the sake of pleasing those around them. But he also knew the kind of man he wanted to be, the kind who spoke truth even when it was uncomfortable, who honored others without betraying himself. The cowboy finally stepped forward, closing the small distance between him and the chief. He didn't lower his gaze or puff his chest. He simply stood firm, speaking with a voice that carried steady and clear through the stillness. He said he was honored, deeply honored, by the tribe's gesture. He explained that he understood the weight of their customs and the value they placed on unity. He thanked the chief for considering him worthy of joining their people, for offering something most men would never dream of receiving. But he also said that a marriage, any marriage, had to be chosen by both hearts, not awarded by circumstance or expectation. He could not agree to bind his life to someone he had not yet had the chance to truly know. Nor would he allow her to be tied to a stranger who hadn't earned her respect in return. His decision wasn't a rejection of the tribe, but a declaration of what he believed love and partnership should be: mutual, free, and rooted in understanding. The moment the words left his mouth, the lodge tightened like a drum. The braves shifted, some bristled, others waited. The chief's daughter lowered her gaze for a moment, perhaps out of relief, perhaps in deep thought. The chief himself remained still as stone, his expression unreadable. The cowboy didn't know if he had just preserved peace or shattered it. After what felt like an eternity, the chief let out a long breath. Then he nodded slowly, a gesture not of resignation, but of acceptance. He told the cowboy that few men, very few, had the courage to speak truthfully in the face of honor so great. He admitted that he had expected compliance, perhaps even gratitude, but he respected the cowboy's stance. A man who valued integrity over reward was a man the tribe could trust. The chief turned to his daughter, asking her, in front of everyone, how she felt. She stepped forward with a confidence that illuminated her strength. She said she respected the cowboy's honesty and believed that a bond built on choice, not obligation, was far more meaningful. She thanked him for seeing her as more than a symbol of unity. Her words eased the tension, softening the atmosphere that had hung like a blade between them. Then the chief did something unexpected. he announced that the cowboy would not be given the daughter's hand in marriage, but he would be given something equally valuable: an open bond with the tribe, a bond formed not by marriage, but by respect. He declared that the cowboy would always be welcome in their camp, that he would be treated as a friend, an ally, and a man of honor. Relief washed through the lodge like a warm wind. The braves nodded, acknowledging the fairness of the resolution. The chief's daughter offered the cowboy a small smile, one that hinted at the possibility of friendship, perhaps even something more in time, but on terms both could choose freely. The cowboy felt the weight lift from his shoulders, but he also understood something profound. His destiny hadn't been rewritten by the tribe's decree. It had been shaped by his own courage to stay true to himself. The connection between him and the Apache people was no longer forced. It was real, earned, and built on mutual respect. And sometimes, in the harsh, unpredictable Wild West, choosing the honest path was the bravest thing a man could do. Ladies and gentlemen, as the sun sets over the rugged horizon of the Wild West, this story leaves us with a truth as vast and unyielding as the frontier itself. A simple act of courage, saving a giant Apache warrior from a deadly bear trap, set in motion a chain of events that tested bravery, honor, and the very core of human choice. The cowboy was faced not only with danger in the wilderness, but with a decision that would challenge his values, his freedom, and his understanding of respect and duty. Through every moment of tension, uncertainty, and cultural expectation, he remained steadfast in his integrity, proving that true courage is not only in facing peril, but in standing by one's principles. He honored the tribe, respected the chief's daughter, and navigated the delicate balance between tradition and personal freedom. In the end, he forged bonds of trust and friendship without compromising who he was, showing us that honor and respect often carry more weight than any obligation or reward. This tale reminds us that heroism is more than daring deeds. It is making the right choice when every path carries risk, when every action has consequences, and when the right thing is not always the easiest. It is about staying true to oneself while honoring others, even in a world as wild and unpredictable as the frontier. So let this story be a reminder. Bravery and compassion ripple far beyond the moment, and the choices we make define not only our destiny, but the legacy we leave for those who follow. In the end, courage, honor, and integrity are the true treasures of the Wild West, and the cowboy's journey shows us how powerful they can be when lived without compromise.